Pretty interesting NFL DFS Week 6 main slate where we could potentially get some value at running back, and we've got some high total games that we may want to stack where they've got some guys with some high salaries that would be easier to get to should we get that value at running back. So honestly, fun slate all around. Some guys we can feel pretty good about. I'm pretty pumped to break down this slate with all of you today. Today we're going to break down games we want to stack, injuries we are monitoring. We'll talk about the top plays at each position and much more to get you ready for Week 6 in NFL DFS. Welcome on into the Heat Check, a FanDuel Research podcast. My name is JimSannes. I am a managing editor at FanDuel Research, joined here as I am every Thursday by Brandon Gdula. Check him out on X at Gdula13. Find his work at FanDuel Research, FanDuel.com/research, where he is a senior managing editor. Brandon, kind of like this Week 6 slate. How you doing today?
Yeah, I like it too. I'm doing well. It's fall, leaves are falling, leaves are turning, getting dark early, which isn't great. So hopefully I can play a couple more rounds of golf before it's dark at 2 p.m. But that also makes me feel like it's football season. And honestly, this is a very, very mid-season NFL week of DFS where we're going to talk about a lot of things. And what we talk about and how we feel on Thursday could be completely different by Sunday based on who's actually playing and who's not and what else crops up. So honestly, I think with the way that we've reformatted the show a little bit, we're in a better position to talk about those if-thens and make that clear. But I don't know, I think it's going to be impossible to build a lineup today and set it. I think there's too much going on.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of moving pieces on this slate, and we'll break down the if-thens Brandon was discussing, so you kind of know how to handle things if you're watching this on Sunday and news is broken since then, which it inevitably will. So I think it'll still be valuable through Sunday because we should have a good idea of what the possibilities are in the slate. Yeah. We'll break down all those here in a second. But first, a reminder to make sure you're subscribed to the FanDuel Research Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. We're with you every Thursday breaking down the top picks across NFL DFS for that week's main slate. That is on the FanDuel Research Podcast feed, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. You can find all of those there, but also on the FanDuel Football Betting YouTube page. That is the now YouTube home of the Heat Check, and also covering the spread, our betting podcast. We have our Week 7 college football betting preview up with Dr. Ed Feng. He broke down his thoughts on Ohio State, Oregon, LSU versus Ole Miss. Bunch of other fun games, Red River Showdown as well, Texas, Oklahoma. That is up right now on this YouTube page. Go to the FanDuel Football Betting YouTube page, hit subscribe there, leave a thumbs up if you're watching live. We appreciate all of you as always. And quick heads up that if you're watching on YouTube after the fact, I'll put timestamps in the description so you know where to jump to if you want to check out. I'm not put weather in there because it's a very short segment. But we'll talk about the bookmaker section. We'll break down trends, and then also if you want to jump ahead to the picks as well, we'll put those timestamps in the episode description on YouTube and over on Spotify and Apple as well if you want to jump around throughout the show for today. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus and present in select states and 18 plus and present in DC. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG in Arizona, Colorado, DC, Iowa, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Michigan, New Jersey, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Tennessee, Vermont, Virginia, and Wyoming. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Visit MD Gambling Health Oregon, Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Let's take a look now at the slate overview for week number 6. Brandon, to me, it revolves around game stacks and potential value at running back, identifying which games we want to stack, how we want to stack them, and can we get to the studs there via value at running back? That to me is a key thing for this slate. What stands out to you as your overview of week number 6?
I think contingency plans where you need to be reactive to news. You need to be reactive to inactives on Sunday, but it can also be really easy to be overreactive or maybe not think about every sort of situation. And I'm not saying like you don't have to think about every team because we got some low implied team totals on the board, but how do you view Tyrone Tracy if we don't get Devin Singletary? Probably need to know that before we kind of maybe find out Sunday morning, for example, because if you're just trying to react, you're going to miss some things and you're going to kind of move away from the players you really like potentially. If you're like me, maybe I'm just the worst lineup builder out there, but it's really easy to think, okay, running back A's out, so running back B is the play I knew I wanted to get there, but where does he rank? Like we do our, we'll ask each other sometimes, like, how do you rank these three?
Yeah.
You're going to ask me probably, and please don't, but you can. I mean, I'll try. But like, it's like, okay, Rico Dowdle, Tyrone Tracy if no Singletary, Chase Brown if no Moss, or like it's going to be like so many if thens where I think it's really beneficial this week to think through, and primarily at running back. I'm not as reactionary with receivers because it's not so much of a 1-to-1 situation, but making sure that I'm aware of everything that can happen and knowing if that happens, how I actually feel. Does that make sense?
I think that, yeah, it does. And I think that to add on to that, once you have all the news on Sunday morning, we get the Shefty bombs at 12:15 a.m. on Sunday morning. Then don't do this at 12:15 a.m. Go do something better with your life. But like that Sunday morning, actually, I would like hand rank out like, okay, now knowing the information we have, how do I feel about these guys? And so you can kind of have an idea of prioritization. And those ranks may change as you build lineups. Like sometimes I will wind up liking a guy more as I build than I did initially. But I think like actually hand ranking things like that can be very helpful. So you kind of know what your prioritization is. And so you don't like gloss over people who you might actually genuinely think have a good path for this week.
That's what I always end up falling into, is trying to take advantage. And again, you need to be receptive to those changes, to the news. It's not, again, this is not to avoid all that, just build your lineups Friday and don't react. But, it can be easy to sort of forget about the plays you love, or, you want to play a lot of Lamar, think of ways you can do that and make sure you have ways to do that. Cause frankly, there's going to be some stuff that breaks our way. Mm-hmm. And if we get multiple value backs, who are the ones you believe in more than some of the stud backs, we have a couple of those at high salaries. Are you okay playing these three backs in these three scenarios and just omitting the stud running backs? Like that's the stuff. And I'm saying, like, the way that I'm phrasing it probably sounds like don't bother doing anything till Sunday. What I'm actually saying is like, be prepared, and then it's going to be easy on Sunday.
Yeah, be prepared so you can be reactive is kind of the way I'd phrase that there. Let's start things off with the injury section and dive into a bummer to kick things off. The Texans placed our guy, Nico Collins, in injured reserve, RIP. So he'll miss at least the next 4 weeks. On the road against New England this week, how are you viewing Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, and Dalton Schultz with no Nico in this offense?
Yeah, I mean, their implied team total is still 22.75. It's sort of middling. It's like on the upper end, but it's kind of overall middling for the week. They're outdoors. That's a big part of, the process, looking at teams that play indoors or with a retractable roof and then go outdoors. CJ Stroud hasn't had his best performances outdoors, I'll say, which is pretty common. Now you're taking potentially if I'm being sort of objective, at least a top 10 receiver, but like really a top 5 receiver off the board. And usually when that happens, you and I say, offensive expectations are down. Let's kind of divest a bit. In this situation, they still have Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell. I think Dalton Schultz is pretty good. I'll shout out Xavier Hutchinson as well, who ran 24 routes last week. If this were a different opponent, if it were indoors, I wouldn't be as out. But Diggs' salary's up. Tank Dell's salary's at 67. Diggs is 8,000. I'm not sure I want to take advantage here because I'm not sure that the potential's there, but maybe that's just me.
I think that like I am receptive to those guys, but kind of it sounds like similar to you. I'm not like prioritizing like I need Tank Dell in every lineup. Like I've been on the Tank Dell roller coaster this year. And roller coasters go up and down. It's really been down. So maybe roller coaster is not the right analogy to make there. But 67 is not bad. He is a talented player. He is a week further removed from the banged upness that he had that forced him to sit out week number 4 as well. So I'll get there for Tank. Diggs' salary 8,000. I'm not really sure what his ceiling is, especially in this matchup. So I think I'm on board with you where I'm not really feeling the need to get there. More okay with Dell. I think the bigger benefactor, right?
Beneficiary.
Dang it. Beneficiary is Dalton Schultz at $5,300 because we've seen him earn targets in this offense before when they've been out without some guys. He had 5 targets in 3 consecutive games. And he's not a guy who will earn targets over Nico, Diggs, and Dell, but if it's just 2 of those guys, I think that he could get there. So I think the guy most receptive to and most actively turning towards is Schultz here. Any thoughts for him at $5,300?
Yeah, definitely most receptive to him.
Okay.
Because he fills tight end. I know you're taking the yards per game leader off the board here.
Right.
A lot of targets. I'm not sure he's got a lot of yardage upside. The scoring potential for this team is relatively lower than it typically is for them in this matchup. I'm not against it. And I'll include Hutchinson in this conversation. I'm still most likely to play Schultz because he fills tight end, and tight end's kind of appealing this week, but anytime you can get some targets and, again, expectations are down, but this is still a mid-level main slate offense in the context of the entire situation. So yeah, I'm highest on Schultz.
Yeah, I think I am too. Same team. The backfield there could be kind of interesting, I think, because likely no Joe Mixon still not practicing as of yet. And last week we saw Daria Gumbawale play a lot for this team. However, that was without Dameon Pierce, who now looks like he'll be back this week. Pierce got a limited practice on Wednesday, coming back from a hamstring injury. So hear me out. I think that we've got a situation similar to what we had with Zach Moss last year. Remember Zach Moss back in week 1? He wasn't the main guy. They used some other dude whose name I've since forgotten. The Colts did. And he struggled quite a bit. I can't remember his name. That's bothering me. But in week 2, they were like, we can't do that anymore. They got Zach Moss active, and he played like a 92% snapper. I don't expect that of Dameon Pierce. But I think that given the Texans were using a passing back on early downs, it means A, they despise Cam Akers, and B, they probably want to get someone else factored in here. So Dameon Pierce, $4,900. If he's full by Friday, would you? Would you?
Would I? Yes. The question is how much?
30.
Is he like main lineup consideration?
Consideration, yes, if it gets me Lamar.
Yeah, let's put that on Front Street. We want Lamar this week. His salary's 95. We want to get there. But yeah, so like a lot of our decisions are going to be based on whether it helps us get Lamar without ruining our lineups.
Yeah.
So I understand the case for it. The team seems to like him. Jim is much more of a ball knower than I am. He pointed out that they switched to a zone scheme last year, and
because it's like it's the Shanahan scheme. They did not use that when he was a rookie. When he played a lot, I don't think he was very good as a rookie, frankly. But like he played a lot, and it seemed like he struggled transitioning to this new scheme. Didn't really get it, and then over the offseason, changed his diet. Looks like he lost 5 to 10 pounds, and I think that he's done a good job of contributing when he could. Like he had a kickoff return touchdown last year. So when he's gotten chances, he's still done stuff. So I think the team is still in on him, despite like they didn't cut him, even though they could have. They had Daria Gumbawale, Cam Akers there. So I think that tells me he's probably going to be the lead down back. Now I'm setting like his snap rate over under at like 50%, which is not high. But like there is potential for him to be a 67% back who gets early down work and some passing game work. And I think that I want to bake in that potential and consider him at $4,900 because I do think that's within his range of outcomes.
So this, I think, can also apply. Also, by the way, it was Deion Jackson last year.
Thank you.
I had to look it up because I never would have remembered that because he was gone pretty quickly.
Correct.
This is applicable to the other value backs as well. Pierce at a much more obvious degree. We talk ceiling with running back. We talk ceiling with every play.
Yeah.
We talk, you don't want to play guys who you're happy if you think they can get you 13, like 70 rushing yards and a touchdown, you're like, we're not necessarily happy with that because you're going to make mistakes elsewhere.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your thought, because this will just be sort of holistic. What do you think Pierce's ceiling is? How do you think that compares to the other value backs?
I think if we get Chase Brown with no Zach Moss, it's below that. So yes, Chase Brown has a better ceiling. Mm-hmm. I think if we I think that Singletary is going to play. So I think he'd be below Tracy. If it were Tracy without Singletary, I'd prefer Tracy. But I think we will get Singletary in there. Looks like Rachaad White's going to play too. Limited practice Wednesday. Kind of a bummer there. It was kind of hoping he'd rest up a little bit. So I think that like if things break against us, Pierce is like a break glass in case of emergency kind of thing. Because I do see like if you told me Sunday, like, hey, Dameon Pierce had 17 carries for 100 yards and 2 catches for 10 with a touchdown, I'd be like, okay, that makes sense. And it wouldn't shock me if that happened.
So wait, 110 yards and a touchdown is what you're thinking.
It wouldn't shock me. Uh-huh. I think that's like a 85th to 90th percentile outcome.
Right.
But it's within the range of outcomes.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But that's the question that, again, anyone who's listened to us for a long time knows that we're probably lower on value backs than most people tend to be. For various reasons. One, I don't like to guess at what his role is going to be. I like to see someone's role, which is what we've had a conversation about, like J.K. Dobbins before the show. And, that's again, I know the salaries are different, but I don't like to be watching games and just be like, oh, this dude's snap rate's 30% at halftime. I made a mistake. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm not even disagreeing with you, but I just think it was important to cover because we're going to talk a lot about value backs.
Yeah.
I wanted to hear where you thought Pierce's true ceiling was if you're saying sort of early down work. Let me ask you this, and we can move on from Dameon Pierce. You're playing him because of the salary, right? Not because you like him.
I like the way he could be used because of how desperate they are.
Okay. All right.
Like if he were $5,800, I might still consider him because I think that a good role is within his range of outcomes. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I hate playing players because of the salary.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm not probably going to play like Xavier Hutchinson.
I also don't think anyone will use Dameon Pierce. That does help too. So if I use him 30% of the time, I'll be well above the field. I do not think there is any realm, any scenario which he wants it being popular, which helps.
Is he a one line of consideration for you? Did I ask that?
He is on the map.
Okay. I don't think
I get there. Don't know. It would depend on other value backs, but like he'd be in the consideration set.
That tells me a lot. All right. I think this was helpful for me too.
Yep, for sure. Eagles back at full health. That's kind of fun. Devontae Smith, AJ Brown, and Lane Johnson all expected back this week against the Browns. What's your interest level there as the Eagles come off their bye week?
Like him, I think Hurts is going to end up being an interesting pivot away from Lamar and potentially Jaden Daniels. I don't know who's going to be more popular there. Haven't really looked into that just yet. I'm assuming Lamar, but the salary discrepancy is kind of noteworthy there. So Hurts is interesting. Saquon, not sure I'm going to get there with the salary being what it is, although I think he's phenomenal. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, both reasonable salaries. They've got target per route rate numbers of 28%. I know Smith's is a little wonky because he's played without AJ Brown, but AJ Brown's the dude. Smith's great, and I'm not going to get to Dallas Goedert with both of those guys back at 7,000. So if I could bring this back, this would be such a fun differentiation game stack, but I can't believe in the Browns at all anymore.
Yeah, I do have interest in Hurts because I don't think he's one of those quarterbacks who does need a bring back because he gets so much of his fantasy viability via rushing touchdowns. So I'm still okay with him. It does hurt the pass catchers as like standalone plays, but I think I'm a little bit higher on Saquon than you because I kind of want to use the value backs in order to get up to Lamar, but also Bijan Robinson and Saquon Barkley. The Bijan one I'll have to I'm sure YouTube is just upset. So I'm sorry, guys. I don't want to gaslight you, but I'll probably have to sell you on Bijan a bit, but I do think that Saquon is appealing too because his workload relative to the workloads of other backs on this slate is pretty freaking sweet. And I want to be very mindful of that.
We got to remember AJ Brown's back. I'm not saying they're going to just forget about Saquon Barkley with AJ Brown back, but that is something that, most of his sample has been without AJ Brown. I know week 1 was good, but
week 1 was very good.
Yes. But it's just something to be mindful of.
If you give me 24 carries, 2 targets, 132 yards and 3 touchdowns, I'll be okay with it. I can settle for that.
All right. Let's just copy and paste his week. All right. That's what we're doing.
That's exactly what I was going to do. Yes.
Okay.
Do you not do that? That's insane. Brian Robinson missed practice Wednesday with his knee injury. He played through it in the first half last week, but they were up pretty big against the Browns because Jaden Daniels is the best. He's able to sit out the second half. They had a commanding lead. I lean towards him playing this week, not totally firm on that. We'll talk about them in the bookmaker section. Other side of that game, the Ravens wide receiver Juan Rashad Bateman didn't practice Wednesday with a groin injury. Sounds like he'll be good to go. Again, we'll talk about them in the bookmaker section. I like how the bookmaker ones, I can toss in like stupid things and not even address it. Malik Neighbors didn't practice Wednesday, which is not ideal after he missed last week due to a concussion. He still has time to clear protocol, but I would have expected him back at practice by now. I think he needs to get a limited session Thursday to put him on track to return. Meanwhile, Devin Singletary limited with a groin injury. Sounds like he will go. If Neighbors can't go again, how interested would you be in Darius Slayton after his big game that you did call on the show last week and I tried to poo-poo? And would you bail on Tyrone Tracy if Devin single digits is back in play?
Simpler one is if Singletary's back, then yeah, I think I'd be just out on Tracy. There's too much risk there for potentially not enough reward. Even though Tracy looked good as a rusher, surprisingly didn't. I mean, he was fine as a receiver, but didn't get as much of this receiving work as I thought he would.
Because they were ahead most of the game.
Well, he didn't get
the breaks off the Seahawks.
Well, if memory serves, he didn't get the first 2 targets.
Because I was in and then Eric Gray fumbled.
Because I was starting to take notes, and I looked up and I was like, "Oh, Tyrone Tracy getting these easy targets out of the backfield." And I was like, "Nope, that's Eric Gray." Like I wasn't watching closely enough. So
shout out Eric Gray for the fumble, saving my day. I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Yeah. So the simpler one is if Singletary plays, no Tracy. I think we also need to discuss if he doesn't play, where he'd be, but we can kind of dig into that too with when we get to the salary scroll later on. Slayton, I think, is still interesting. Against a defense like this, in a game that is fun to me, and I think probably more to me than most. Like sure. Regardless of what the total even is,
it's high,
right? But like, I like the Giants more than
that's true. Okay,
so which is pretty evident by this point. But Cincinnati 24th in pressure rate. They're about average in 8 out allowed, so I think Slayton can still get some downfield work. We think he's good on this show. Daniel Jones, I know, started off slow in terms of downfield passing, but it's kind of a smaller sample, and he wasn't as bad as perception really with
As
that.
I thought, you can say it.
Well, and also like I'm just gonna say like he's running.
Yeah.
He's efficient, adjusted for opponent. He's playing a pretty beatable opponent this week.
Would you be receptive to dimes if Neighbors can't go?
I mean, it's a bet against Lamar going for 36, basically.
Mm-hmm.
There are chances, although slim, where Lamar doesn't go for 36. But I think Jones is interesting. If we were doing our traditional love section with 2 quarterback loves, I would consider saying Lamar and Jones because Jones gets you such a different lineup. Yeah. Jones plus value running backs, that's how you can get to like a CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown stack, which we don't get to do on this show very often because we don't build lineups that way. So yes, I'd be interested in Slayton, especially for bringbacks, which I'll be there. And yeah, I think I covered the rest.
Yeah, I would be more into Jones if Neighbors goes. I would not be totally out if Neighbors can't go, but I would much prefer if he can. Zach Moss missed practice with an ankle injury on Wednesday, briefly returned in week 5 after the injury, but then left again, kind of similar to what Joe Mixon had in week 2 with his. Mike Gesicki also missed practice with a hamstring injury Wednesday. If he can't go, Eric All could step into a larger role. You're going to talk Bengals pass catchers in the trend section. Did want to ask you briefly about Chase Brown. 5 check. Where you at on him if Zach Moss can't go? Salary on Chase Brown, $5,400.
If Moss doesn't go, we're just saying that.
Yeah, let's just assume he doesn't. Let's pretend for a second.
I'd be like 75%, I think, at least.
I would consider going the full hundo. I would consider it.
Yeah. Yeah. There are too many unknowns at this point, but of the value backs, that's kind of mostly what I'm hoping happens.
Yeah.
Because Chase Brown, when he's on the field, he's getting the ball, which is
correct. Literally
wild.
Every snap.
Yeah. So that's not going to that rate's not going to transfer over, but he's good at football. The salary's low. And honestly, the Bengals, they got to keep the foot on the gas pedal. So I would love that.
I would too. Some concerns.
He'd be my RB1.
Oh yeah. I agree. Like the reason I might not go full hundo is that like they're facing Dexter Lawrence and their offensive line is kind of beat up and not great on the interior. Like that's the one downside, and they don't trust him for pass blocking. He'll still get targets though. I think that's a key thing for him there. Christian Watson got into limited practice on Wednesday, meaning he could be back after a 1-game absence. Every time he goes down, it looks like he has to have a limb amputated and then he's back suddenly. I don't understand this man, but Romeo Doubs also good to go for practice after his 1-game suspension. We'll talk about the Packers and the Bookmaker section. Michael Pittman could potentially go on IR for the Colts. Josh Downs also missed practice with a toe injury. Both Trey Sermon and Jonathan Taylor sat out. Anthony Richardson limited with an oblique. Seems like he's trending towards a return. So they could not be more banged up entering this game with Tennessee. So we're going to find out a lot on the Colts as the week goes along, but what's your overall receptiveness level to the Colts as they take on the Titans?
I mean, their total is still 20.5, which is not, I mean, it's a couple points from being like 5th lowest if it was 19, but it's kind of better than I would have expected. I don't love divisional matchups really in general, but I especially hate AFC South matchups. They feel like they can get ugly real fast
unless it's Colts, Jags, and Joe Flacco is starting.
Yeah. We love our guy, Alec Pierce, right? Mm-hmm. His salary is $5,800. His per target numbers are just pretty much off the chart. But to be honest, if it's Richardson, that's a big downgrade. Titans also good at limiting the downfield pass so far. 6th and ADOT allowed, 3rd and yards per target allowed on passes at least 10 yards downfield. Don't love that. Any thoughts on Pierce? Anything here for you?
I think the issue that I have with the Colts is I don't see either Pierce or Downs getting like a tangible role change, even with Pittman out. Because with Pierce, he's still running every route. Like that's not going to change. So like he's not going to be on the field more. It's will he earn more targets? And like he's good at a lot of things, but like earning underneath stuff and like gimme targets. They have not done that with him. And he's been on the field. So like, he's not really getting a role change, which is my downside. And with Downs, he's already getting 163 targets per game, just not doing a whole lot with them because he's not a huge downfield threat. Did get some with Flacco, but I don't expect that if it's Richardson. So I'm still not super high on this team, even without Pittman, on Downs and on Pierce. And maybe that's stupid, but like, I just don't know how much the role for either guy will actually change. And they're salaried in a place where it's based on their previous role, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. Do we think Sermon's going to play?
Probably, but it's a tougher matchup than what he had last week because the Titans' interior defensive line is pretty good. He had 10 carries and 6 targets. That 6 targets is pretty nice. And like, he would be more efficient with Richardson in there versus Flacco, like, because he opens more lanes for running backs. But I don't know. I'm okay with Sermon, but like, not falling over myself to use him. His salary is $6,000 flat.
Yeah. I think I'd rather go elsewhere there. If Sermon can't play, let's just say, would you go to Tyler Goodson?
No.
He had, I think, a 42% snap rate, 57 scrimmage yards last week. He was running routes.
Nope. I don't see early down work for him, so that's why. Maybe they have to. Evan Hall might get in there to be great. Go Cats. Drake May will start for the Patriots this week in place of Jacoby Brissett. Ramondre Stevenson missed practice with a calf injury. Sounds like he'll be good to go, but Antonio Gibson will get a bigger role if Stevenson is out. Does this move to Drake May put you on any of the Pats' skill players? Skill players might be a misnomer here. They're pass catchers against the Texans.
Demario Douglas has actually had like offense adjusted yardage upside. Jalen Polk hasn't gotten over, I think, 30 yards all year. I don't want to be dismissive of like Douglas, who's at least doing something, but implied team total here is 15.75. Like,
yep,
I'm not going to get there. So
I don't know how a guy whose nickname is Pop doesn't have more juice. It's very upsetting. So no Pats for me either. Unless it doesn't know Stevenson, I'd be receptive to Gibson because they'll get a lot of passing game work and some early down work, but not enamored. Derek Carr going to sit out week 6 with Spencer Rattler starting in his place. Rashid Shaheed and Alvin Kamara also missed practice Wednesday, though expecting both to play. Taysom Hill missed another practice with a rib injury. Does Rattler starting rule out all Saints guys for you as they take on the Buccaneers?
Like, there's no wiggle room for Kamara at 88 to be subpar, especially when you have like give me Saquon over Kamara. Olave's salary at 71 is too high, although it sounds like Rattler's excited to throw the ball to Chris Olave, which would be fun because he's very good at football. I think I saw something like Olave's excited too, so maybe there's some juice there for my guy Chris Olave for once. Shaheed at 64 still honestly has like enough upside to sort of surpass that. I don't think I'd quite get there. The bigger thing here though is like, is there enough for, I guess, where do you like any Bucks? And if you like the Bucks, is there enough here where you'd be like, all right, I want to play Mike Evans. I see enough to play Shaheed this week.
The only buck I like is Chris Godwin, $7,500. His role's been really good this year. And whenever Mike Evans and Marshawn Lattimore square off, Evans doesn't tend to win. So that should funnel more targets Godwin's way. So like, I'm receptive to Godwin, but I also don't view him as a priority. So this game kind of just lost a lot of appeal to me in general with no Carr out there.
Yeah, and I'm all for contrarian game stacks. I'm not sure this is the one.
Right.
But, I could see it being the one, but even with that, there might be some dispersed fantasy production. So probably out on that one for the most part this week.
I agree. Aiden O'Connell will start for the Raiders. Sure. Devontae Adams still out. Jacoby Myers and Zamir White both missed practice Wednesday. Anybody you want to target there as they face the Steelers?
I know O'Connell's like samples limited. He's actually been good if you adjust for schedule. Again, it's a limited sample, but I'm not really wanting to play anybody against the Steelers at this point.
Same. After the Chargers bye week, Gus Edwards and left tackle Rashawn Slater, again, go Cats, both missed practice on Wednesday. Probably puts them on the wrong side of questionable. Joe Alt, though, their right tackle, was back at practice, which is good for the Chargers. If Edwards can't go, would you have interest in J.K. Dobbins in a good role, but bad game environment against Denver?
Yes. So this is one of those, like, we've seen the role be good. We've seen him be good. He had a 72% snap rate last game. His route rate, I actually want to double check this as I'm talking. His route rate has been in the 40%. I know this team does not throw the ball much, but the fact that J.K. Dobbins has had a route rate in the 40s, yeah, he's had at least 44% of the routes in every game. He's got a 12.2% target share. He's got a 52% opportunity per snap rate. So on over half of his snaps, he's getting a carrier target. I know the game environment isn't great, but I would love to hear sort of, I'll put it this way. I've played so many worse running backs in potentially worse, more like nebulous environments. J.K. Dobbins' role should be secure here, and I think that that's at least worth considering.
I think it depends on how many other value backs we get. Like if Zach Moss plays and Rachaad White plays and Devin Singletary plays and all these other guys play, that will boost my interest in J.K. Dobbins a lot, because then his ceiling relative to salary, relative to the slate, will be higher. Whereas now it's like, if we have those other value guys like Chase Brown, their ceiling relative to salary, relative to the field, will be better. But if we don't get those guys, then yeah, I mean, like, it's $6,700 for a guy who's like gonna get early down work, has had times where he's been efficient. It is a very difficult matchup, but you know, we care about matchups, but we don't want to make them like the end all be all. So I'd be there if we have limited options at other value backs.
Yeah. This is a great example too of, okay, we can talk about the value backs all we want. What if we don't get any of them? There have been weeks where we've talked about like, hey, there's like 6 value backs. Some of them are going to be there. So just play those whenever and none of those situations work out.
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, do you not play Lamar, or do you maybe try to consider someone a little more like a Dobbins? And so I think that that's appealing. I'm not saying I'm going to like outright, he's a love for me or anything, but he deserves more attention than I probably would have given him before really digging in.
Let's say we get none of the value backs, like nightmare scenario.
Right.
Would he be a single lineup consideration for you?
Consideration, yes, but I would probably want to think about restructuring things. That's where like a Dalton Schultz really comes into play.
Sure.
I love a lot of receivers this week. I don't necessarily love a lot of like true value receivers.
Below 6,000, it gets pretty dark.
It does. I have like 5 names, and they wouldn't even be likes. Yeah. They'd be like, if I need to. Yeah. And I don't like to play guys if I need to. Correct. I'd rather play Dobbins and like Jaden Reed if that's what it takes or something.
Yep. I think that makes a lot of sense. Okay, let's take a look here at the Bookmaker Info across week number 6 and start things off by talking about a game with a massive total and a tight spread. That is down in Dallas, where the Dallas Cowboys are hosting the Detroit Lions. Sorry, I got a weird pop-up on my thing. I
didn't know what part was tripping you up. I was like, down in Dallas.
That's my browser lost connection. You can see the Bookmaker stuff here, right?
I can, yeah.
Cool. All right. So Lions at Cowboys. I understand why the Lions favored by 3. I think that's a little aggressive. Total though is 52.5. So good setup for us from a DFS perspective. Fun players on both sides. How does this game rate out for you for stacking?
It's relatively, I mean, it's so easy to like, although I do recall this game last year, week 17 being like the big game, and I think was, I say 39 total points. I think it was 2019.
Total was like 54.5. I had the under. It was great. Big fan.
So, and if we're applying Jim's Saquon Barkley logic, just cut and paste that.
Correct. Thank you. Thank you for acknowledging my process.
But it is, I don't know. These two teams, as fun as they are, more so the Cowboys, of course, can kind of ruin some things.
Yeah.
With that said, this is such a fun game, and it's one that you want to stack. I think the main question to start off with, though, is we love Lamar, right? We want to get to Lamar. It's pretty much priority one. Is this a 2 QB game, 1-0? Because I think that's important for how much you actually want to stack it. If you can't really justify building around the quarterbacks, it probably tells you a little bit about the game itself.
I will not get to Goff. I will get to Dak. Dak's a firm one for me. What about you?
Okay. So is Dak would he sort of be your QB2?
No, I think QB 1 and 2 are facing each other. Lamar versus Jaden Daniels. And then thinking through the rest of the slate at quarterback, I'd put Dak above Kyler and Jordan Love in the Packers-Cardinals game, because this game's indoors. Mm-hmm. They can't really run the ball that well, which Dak benefits from. I'm just going to go with that instead. Dak is the beneficiary of their bad run game. Did I do it? Yeah? Cool. Okay. So I think Dak would be in the QB3 consideration and potentially near the top of that consideration for me.
Yeah, I think Dak's sort of we'll do it better with the scroll, but it's more a matter of, okay, how much do we like this game? I think it's a 1 QB game, mostly Dak. Touchdowns have been kind of there, but 2 in the last 3 games apiece, but no 3 touchdown plus games. He can throw for yardage. And frankly, after the showing that he had Sunday night and the lip reading with CeeDee Lamb, I think there's going to be a little extra motivation here.
Sure.
I'm not a play someone because of motivation. Yeah. The salary's reasonable. Game environment is great. Now it comes down to all right, let's say we don't get the value backs. Dak's in consideration for me for my QB1.
Okay. So he's in there with the Lamar and Jaden for you.
If there's no value running backs,
okay,
I might need to get $1,500.
Okay, cool. I think that one of the bigger appeals of this game, and a lot of times with Lions and Cowboys games, you don't have value plays who you want to consider because their guys are so high salaried.
Yep.
I actually think we do have that here. Jameson Williams' salary is $6,300. I like Jalen Tolbert as a talent, and he looked really good Sunday night. Got hit in the nether regions and still came back and scored a touchdown the next play. So that was good. Rico Dowdle is kind of similar to J.K. Dobbins, where if we don't get other legit value plays, he'd be on my radar at 61. So I think that's part of the appeal for me in this game is that I can feel okay, at least, about Williams, Tolbert, and Dowdle. So I can actually get low salaried exposure, and I can have a CeeDee Lamb, Jameson Williams game stack. I can have a Jalen Tolbert, Amon-Ra St. Brown game stack and not blow my entire salary load on, just stacking up the studs. I'd like to get to the studs paired together because that'll be more unique. But I think we actually have value here. How do you feel about the value plays of Dowdle, JMO, and Tolbert in this one?
I'm always good with Jameson Williams. He's got a combination. I hate the targets being what they are. Just the fact that it can happen the way that it can for Jameson. Not a lot of catchable targets, by the way, which is something to monitor, it's
because a lot of them are so far downfield.
Yeah.
Inherently you'll get fewer. And that's going to lead to he's Rashid Shaheed. And I say that in a positive sense, someone who adores Rashid Shaheed. He's a step below Rashid Shaheed right now, I would say.
Yeah. His target share has been lower and lower every week, even though the targets were up in week 2, the share itself was down. But he ran every route in week 4 leading into the bye. I don't know if I can really consider him. I'm higher on Shaheed in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Because he gets more targets. than Jameson. But yeah, if I'm stacking this game, Jameson definitely is on the radar. I think the bigger question for us is Tolbert. How much we believe in it's not even a talent, but the role stickiness for him.
I think the role is extremely sticky because he was running routes before Cooks got hurt. And like I don't remember what game it was. Maybe it was the New Orleans game. Like he caught a downfield target where he like leapt up in the air and kind of like pinned it against his body. And it was like really impressive. And I kind of think that might have earned some trust out of Dak, which is why he was willing to give him 10 targets against the Steelers. And so like,
what's CeeDee Lamb got to do to get some trust then? Throw up a jump ball.
Yeah. Like Dak was just trying to feature his wide receiver one, Jalen Tolbert, just who can fault him for that? I think that Tolbert's role is sticky in terms of routes run. I think that he has earned Dak's trust. So I do think at 61, he is very much on the map.
Yeah. Are we talking main lineup potential? Because that's, I think, what I'm not there. So it's more than by default.
I think that he and JMO are both in like the
game stacks only.
No, outside of game stacks too, because I like their salaries relative to that range, and they've got upside, and I want juice at receiver for a standalone play too. So I would say both are in play beyond game stacks. Maybe I'd wind that they're in a single lineup, but it would not be my preference.
Talk to me about Lamb and St. Brown.
Lamb is always in play when he's at home. Like his ceiling is astronomical. He hasn't had a blow up game yet this year, but like, that's within his range of outcomes. The Lions are a very good team against the run. The Cowboys can't really run the football that well. So like we could just see a ton of volume. And like you said, like there's a bit of squeaky wheel narrative where Dak may be throwing him jump balls. So like 93 is high. And the question is, do we like him more than we like Jamar Chase against the Giants? Because that's kind of like the other guy up in that range. I would probably lean towards Lamb there personally because of that game being indoors, because he didn't just blow up last week like Jamar Chase did. I think that's enough to put me on Lamb over Chase.
Well, Jamar Chase is blown up every week, if we're being honest. So,
yeah. Where are you on Lamb versus Chase and Amon-Ra?
I kind of like the idea of Chase over Lamb.
Okay.
Because I trust that the target share, if one of these guys gets a 35% target share and the other doesn't, I'm actually thinking it's more likely to be Jamar Chase at this point.
Interesting.
Than Lamb.
Lamb doesn't have a T. Higgins, though.
I thought Jalen Tolbert was the next big thing.
He's great, but he's not T. I don't want.
Well, we'll talk more about like the usage for Chase. So it's a matter of like, is Lamb at the expense of Saquon for you, at least until you sell me on him, Bijan? Like, I don't know. I haven't built enough lineups yet. Can you play Lamar and CeeDee Lamb together?
That'd probably be tough. It depends on the value backs. Yeah.
So then that's like, okay, Dak only lineups or thereabouts.
Yeah.
Like we're kind of nitpicking here because it's more about if I'm playing Dak, I'll play Lamb. If I'm maybe kind of fading that game a bit for a particular lineup, then Chase has appeal. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. I struggle with him just because his ceiling is high, but it's different.
I think the gap between his median and his ceiling is very small, both in the positive and the negative sense.
Yeah. So like St. Brown in tournaments, kind of less appealing, but then it's so hard to play him because I don't really want to spend up $9,000 for a receiver in more of a cash game lineup. So
the Cowboys have struggled a lot against the rush. David Montgomery's salary 79, Jahmyr Gibbs 78. They are magnets. They will have the exact same yards in scrimmage on Sunday. I guarantee it. Like that's how it always happens. As a result, I don't foresee myself getting to either. Like for single game, I like using both together because I think that's fun. For a full slate at running back, when I've got some decent options, I'm okay glossing over both because like the odds that one of them hangs 30 on me and like really makes me regret not using them seems a bit lower. How do you feel about Gibbs and Montgomery?
Pretty much always the same. I'm gonna like a lot of Lions games. I'm never gonna like them a ton.
Yeah.
Just kind of is what it is in that sense.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Any final thoughts for you on this game?
Because it's this game, we should talk tight ends.
Okay. I will not be on Laporta at 63. Receptive to Ferguson at 61. Okay with him. We'll have him in Dak and CD stacks, like a Dak double. That's kind of where I settle in there. What about you?
Same thing. So we can move on.
All righty, let's talk about what could be the premier game of the week. That is the Commanders at the Ravens right now. FanDuel Sportsbook. Ravens favored by 6.5. Total in this game down a tick to 51.5. I've actually got this total a little bit higher than that, frankly, which surprises me because I don't really ever have totals that high. Is this a 2 QB game for you? Is that a dumb question? And how do you view the skill players in this game?
No, I don't think it's a dumb question. This is going to be such a fun game. It almost feels like the expectations are a little too high just for what it could be. So anything less than that is going to feel a little underwhelming. But Lamar, we know what his potential is, what his ceiling is. But Jaden Daniels isn't that far behind. His rushing is there. His opponent adjusted efficiency is at the top of the league, which is awesome. I know your model loved him coming out. So you nailed that one so far. I know you don't want to victory lap it too soon, but
I'm definitely afraid.
He's great. So what's that?
Definitely afraid of victory lapping too early. I'm just going to keep it quiet.
I mean, this isn't a fluke though, right?
Like, no, I agree. It's not a fluke. It's more about like the NFL is volatile up and down. And I don't want to victory lap Jaden to make it appear like that's a negative towards Caleb Williams, who's also very good. And I also like a lot. So that people can take it that way. And I like Caleb too.
Yeah. This is a 2 QB game for sure. Mm-hmm. Honestly,
are they the QB 1 and 2 for you?
Yes.
I think so too.
Yes, they are.
I agree.
And odds are, I'll probably regret saying this, we're going to get some value at running back so we can play them.
Yeah.
Lamar, much more the priority. He's at home. He's just a safer play. About this is where like the narrative stuff, the reacting to news. I'm like, you know what? Lamar says he's fine if he doesn't have like a big game. And then I went with Josh Allen without any receivers basically last week. Did not work out. As soon as it was like 7 minutes in, I was like,
oops.
Yeah. And those are the types of things I try to think through. Yeah. If you get to Lamar, what are the odds? You're like, oh man, why'd I do that? Like, you're not going to feel that way this week. Josh Allen last week, I should have got there before lock. So Lamar, my favorite play of the whole slate that I want to build around.
Okay.
And then with the pass catchers here, or unless you want to talk Jaden first.
Yeah, let's talk about Jaden quick. I think the one downside with him is my model actually does have the Ravens a bit undervalued at 6.5 in this game. And I have been on the Commanders pretty much every week thus far. That is a little bit concerning to me because it could be like, okay, rude awakening kind of thing. Counterpoint is that the Ravens pass defense still has not been good. 24th by number fire schedule adjusted metrics. The Commanders are 28th. So you're getting the top 2 passing offenses in football through 5 weeks versus 2 bottom 10 pass defenses. I think that's enough to overcome any concerns I have around Daniels. Am I going to put him above Lamar? No. If you give me 10 lineups, I'm leaning towards just like going all in this game, like 7 Lamar, 3 Daniels, maybe 6-4, but it would not be 5-5. So decently heavy lean towards Lamar over Daniels, but I do think that I feel pretty firm that Daniels is the QB2 here because the rushing, because the passing has been trending the right direction, because he's been throwing downfield. We know where the ball is going with him. I think that all adds up really well for him.
Yeah, and there's just a lack of true dual threat, huge upside QBs on the board other than him.
Yep.
Again, that's why I think Hurts is interesting. Is Hurts even close to you with Daniels? Like, should Hurts be like the QB3 other than Dak?
Yeah, I forgot about him when I was talking about Dak.
So that's exactly what I was saying, is like he's going to probably go overlooked. Dak's in a fun game.
Yeah.
These two guys are in a fun game against each other.
So I'd say that Dak was at the top of the QB3 consideration tier. I think that Hurts is actually at the top of that, but he's a good step below Jaden because of game environment.
All right. I agree.
All right. Zay Flowers, salary 72. Tight ends, Mark Andrews doesn't exist, but Isaiah Likely is at $5,800. Zach Ertz, 5,000. Terry McLaurin, 68. I'd have a really hard time not putting Terry McLaurin in a lot of lineups this week. Where are you on him at $5,800 or $6,800?
He was 58, man.
Uh-huh.
Love Terry. He's got such good market shares.
Mm-hmm.
He's very good at football. He's one of those players who can do a lot with a little. And the reality is Baltimore they started off slow, wasn't necessarily because of their offense. So I think that's appealing to me. Terry probably in consideration for my favorite receiver, probably
single lineup borderline lock.
I don't want to say lock, but frankly, like he's the only one they kind of throw to. This is kind of like, I wish my geography were better, so I could say this is like Baltimore East or West. So anyone can roast me really easy, and I'm kind of close to this area, so I should know, but my brain doesn't remember anything with.
I think it'd be West because Baltimore is like on the.
That's what I was thinking, but I don't. So this is Baltimore
West. That could
West.
be really stupid too. Yeah.
Hey,
I've done this trip. Like I had a bachelor party that went from Baltimore to DC to watch baseball, and like
then you should know. I've been to DC one time. I've never been to Baltimore, so
I've been to both multiple times. I'm a fraud.
Okay, you should know. So this is
I literally was a person driving too, so I have no excuse. But my sister went to college in DC and lived in Baltimore for like 5 years, and I've got no excuses here.
All right, let's Baltimore is farther east, but it's like northeast.
Yeah.
So
all right.
Is it Baltimore South then? It doesn't really work. Like it doesn't the phrase is more like east and west. But it's basically like, okay, if we like Lamar and we think he's gonna throw Zay.
Yeah.
If we like Jaden and we think they're gonna throw Terry. Like that's it. So it's really simple. So my question to you is like, where are you with Zay?
I will have him in most of my Lamar lineups at this point.
Ooh, okay.
Well, I mean, you look at their target shares, like he is definitively the guy.
Shares are great.
26.9% overall target share for Zay Flowers. He is at a 36% deep target share. Inside the red zone, he is 16%. So like if I use Lamar and stack him, I kind of have to go Zay. I'd go Isaiah Likely number 2, but he's a distant 2. If you give me 10 Lamar lineups, I'm going 6 Zay Flowers, I am going 2 Isaiah Likely, and I am going 2 naked Lamars in that distribution. Maybe I go 7 Zay, maybe.
Only thing I might disagree with is 2 with Likely.
I mean, like Charlie he has upside. That's really it. He's running routes, can earn targets. He has a path to a big game. That's more than most tight ends can say. And like, if I assume Lamar is a big game, that increases the odds that Likely is a big game. So like not a single, like if I don't have Lamar or Jaden, I'm not using Isaiah Likely, but in those situations.
Yeah, I agree.
What about Derrick Henry? Henry's salary, $9,100. Last week kind of got bailed out by that overtime, got bailed out by Lamar being called down to the 1 yard line, still just 16 points. Like, again, I think it's the same consideration as last week, where what are the odds that Derrick Henry torches me for not using him after we're considering his salary is $9,100? And I think it's around like 25%, somewhere around there. Does that mean I'll use him 25%? No, probably lower than that. Where are you on Henry?
Yeah, I've had a lot of bad memories of trying to fade Derrick Henry and then, what's that? 80-yard touchdown in the fourth quarter, something like that.
Or the first play.
Or the
That's
first
also
play.
happened.
Sure. That's also happened. And it's like, I'm the dummy here. But we like this game so much. I have to be there. But like you tell me Derrick Henry versus Saquon, like workload wise, like Saquon just blows him out of the water. But Derrick Henry's just playing a different game. He's the
Yeah.
Deebo Samuel of running backs, and that's just kind of is what it is. So one lineup consideration for me, no. But if I'm building around, like, I don't think I would do Lamar and Henry, despite the fact that they could score every touchdown together. Like not together, but
They could have every yard together almost.
they could. So maybe I
Yeah.
should be more receptive to that. But then we're talking, what, 18,600 of your salary to this
That's quick
offense.
math. Very impressive.
Well, it was an easy one. I did the 9 and 9. Yeah, that's how
If you give me 5 single entry lineups, I'm probably putting Henry in 1. Like I'll be like, okay, sure, I'll put him in 1. Deal with it, kind of thing.
Yeah, and would that specifically have a Jaden?
Yes, most likely.
Yeah,
probably be a Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, Derrick Henry stack.
Yeah, I think this is one of those games where it could go over. Nobody scores more than 1 touchdown.
Sure.
Terry and Zay account for 50% of their team's receiving yards, but maybe they don't score. Like one of those situations.
Yep, for sure. Any final thoughts for you on this one?
I don't think so.
All right, let's close with the bookmaker section then by talking about a game that features 2 pretty bad defenses. That is the Cardinals at the Packers. Total right now in this game is 47.5. Packers favored by 5.5. As mentioned, Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs likely back for this week. And frankly, that's killed a lot of the appeal in this game for me, because it thins out the target shares. The Packers, if you've got 5 viable pass catchers, that's good for you. 1. Not great for me. Yeah. I do like Josh Jacobs a lot. I do like James Conner enough. But the appeal in this game has gone down. Also, 14-mile-per-hour winds here, which is part of the reason why the total has come down 2 points. So where do you settle in on Cardinals, Packers, all things considered?
Yeah, like we pointed out with the Texans, another team going outdoors, which isn't necessarily great. I mean, the Packers, I don't want to just write them off in terms of the pass catchers, including, Tucker Kraft, who's been fun. But it's also really hard to look at this slate and say, you know what, this is the week to roll the dice on which Packers receiver is going to sort of stand out. Obviously, the odds are Jaden Reed because he's just the best and most consistent in terms of getting workload. But the salary is 7,700.
Sure,
like that's tough.
Yeah.
And the flip side is like, Kyler could be everyone kind of forgot about Kyler, but he's outdoors.
He needed a 50-yard rushing touchdown last week to score 25 points.
Like I like him. The passing efficiency is never really what you're going for with him. He's moving outdoors now. I think potentially the best play here would just be Marvin Harrison Jr. at 7,000, but he, again, moving outdoors. I don't know. This feels like it should be more fun of a game, but
yeah,
I'm struggling with it.
The wind hurt it, I think. And then the presence, because like I was more than happy to go to both Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks if we were going to get no Christian Watson. So if there's no Watson, then I'll bump up those guys for sure. But for right now, I think that it sets it more for like mini stacks of Josh Jacobs at running back with either Harrison or Trey McBride as a bring back, because McBride's salary is 65, which is not bad at all, frankly, given his market shares. So I will still be here regardless, but it will kind of narrow the pool of usable players if that winds up happening. Where are you on Jacobs at 76?
Probably one of my favorite running back plays again.
Cool.
Still just, if I'm being frank, I think the salary is too high for what his true ceiling might be.
Sure.
But in terms of like a cash game situation, yeah, we might have some value backs where we're guessing. I think we really have to guess with what his role might be. It's just the overall production and stuff. So
yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah.
But it also makes me receptive to the value backs because I don't think there's a lot of like There have been some weeks where we just lived in the 7,000 range. I don't think this is one of those weeks at running back.
7,000 range is not as good this week as it has been at other times. I firmly agree with that. If you assume that the Cardinals keep things close, then James Conner has a lot of appeal because he is going to get a ton of work in the red zone. He is an early down guy, gets some passing game work too. So like in the situations you assume they keep it close, he's a good play, but I don't think he's an amazing play in really any setup. Cause like, again, kind of similar to Jacobs, like not really firm on what his like true ceiling is. So I'll use him, but he's more of like a 15-20% guy than someone I want to get to in a bunch of lineups. So this game is okay. And I don't think I'm going to use either quarterback, frankly.
Yeah, I considered Love because you can benefit from the fact that he's got multiple pass catchers, but we like to stack things to improve the chances that we have like a huge lineup. I think having so many different pass catchers hurts him. And then just quickly on Connor to sort of solidify your point. He is third among running backs in red zone snap rate at 87%. Kyron's first at 92%. Jordan Mason, 89%. Again, Connor, 87%. And then it's Saquon and Pollard at 81 and 80%. So like he's kind of in a tier of his own.
Yeah.
And then things drop off. So you make a good point. If you like this game, if you want to play Jordan Love and one of his pass catchers, and you're not considering James Conner for touchdown equity, you might want to like rethink that.
I agree with that. The one case I would make for Love is you could just say, I'm not going to worry about the pass catcher, like run him naked. You can do that. Right. If you assume he just spreads it out. Cause like typically when we run a quarterback with no stack, it's like he runs. Here it's that none of his pass catchers has a big individual game, but he himself does. I'm probably not going to get there still, but like that's at least a path to considering him there.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about. I don't think it's the right week to do it. If we like if Baltimore and Washington were off the main slate, then yeah, I would be very receptive to that. But I'm not gonna get the love with Lamar, Jaden Hurts, and Dak, and also we got another quarterback who could be a little bit fun in the Sunday Night Hammer game.
Educate me then, Brandon. Let's talk about that Sunday Night Hammer. That is the Giants at the Bengals. And frankly, that could be a 2-quarterback game if you wanted it to be, I think, at least a consideration there. You're going to go through the Bengals with T. Higgins and what they've looked like so far in the games he has played. What did you find when you dug into the data there?
Yes, I mean, Cincinnati, their backs are kind of up against the wall. And I think they just might need to score some points in every game, and that's fun. Not fun for them, but fun for us. Their defense is 31st by number fires adjusted metrics. Their offense is third because they're, specifically because their passing offense is third. And T. Higgins missed 2 games, and T. Higgins is one of the best receivers in football. If you ask me, it's not like a hot take, but I think I'm higher on T than a lot of people are. So. But Joe Burrow's averaging 0.17 EPA per play this season, 0.10 over expectation. So you love to see that, one of the better marks in football. And again, that's with, how's this for math? 40% of his games without T. Higgins.
Proud of you.
Look at that. On the fly. 2 out of 5. In 3 games with Higgins, Burrow's averaging 0.40 EPA per play and 0.29 EPA per play over expectation. That's sick. He's got 316 yards, 3.3 touchdowns per game. Now, all of those were against teams 20th or worse in pass defense by EPA per play. Giants are 17th there. With opponent adjustments, they're roughly top 12, but you don't really see a whole lot of okay, we need to adjust expectations until you get into the top 8, top 7 with opposing defenses. So I think people who say matchups don't matter, it doesn't really matter if you're 11th. So I don't want to really overthink this one. Joe Burrow's got multiple touchdowns in 4 or 5 games. He's cleared 300 yards in 2 games this year for that bonus potential. But, if we're looking specifically at this team with T. Higgins, and things would look different if I just cherry picked the last 2 weeks when Higgins started to see more targets, because he had a 16% target share week 1 for him, then 33% and then 36% in his 3 games. But again, in this full 3-week sample, T leads with a 28% target share at 10 per game. He's got a 41% air yard share for over 100 air yards per game. 3.7 downfield targets, so at least 10 yards downfield. Those are valuable targets. 1.7 red zone targets. If you give proper weight to downfield and red zone targets, which I like to do, he's got 13.6 targets worth of like potential per game as opposed to just the 10 because he gets downfield work. So that's sick. And he's got a 30% target per route rate with 75% of the team's end zone targets in that split. Love to see that. Jamar Chase, 23.4% target share for 8.3 per game, 33% of the air yards, but also 3.7 downfield, 1.3 red zone targets per game for 11.7 weighted targets. He's got a 22.7%, so 23% target per route rate. Just for context, like 30% elite, 20% about average. So it's good, not great. Eventually, that's probably going to get better. And then behind them, it's actually Zach Moss with a 13% target share. So, rest up Zach. Maybe Chase Brown gets some of those targets, but yeah, and that's with Andre Iosivas running 80% of the routes in this split. So like he's on the field, just not getting a lot of work. And then Chase Brown again is fun. He's got a 24% red zone target share with a 36% target per route rate. So you mentioned like the pass blocking concerns, but he can still get targets whenever he is actually running routes. If we go back to last year in 7 games with Burrow, Chase, and Higgins, Chase had a 29% target share. Higgins was at 20%. T had kind of a weird down year last year, and that's something that I want to be mindful of. Where yes, the target share right now favors him and his return. There have kind of been times where he did out target Jamar Chase for like extended periods. Not last year, but I think the question is going to be sort of like what your long-term expectations are for the market shares between these two, and if it even matters. So that's going to be kind of my final question to you. Eric All could be interesting. His salary is $4,500 if there's no Mike Gesicki. All has a 25% target per route rate, which is nice for a tight end, like very nice for a tight end, and also an 8.2% target share, like without any adjustments. So like he's kind of roughly a little bit involved. Could see a roll spike. It's possible Andre Iosivas gets a little bit of a bump though instead, or in addition to that. So I want to be kind of mindful and not really go all in on Eric All. But I think the real question here is right now we're seeing T getting more targets than Chase, and Chase just scoring from 60 yards out 10 times a game. What do you think the target shares kind of look like long term? Do you think it even matters? Because that's how you kind of say, all right, Jamar Chase, he's been doing this with a 23% target share. He's gonna be getting that 30% target share like he got last year. Therefore, his salary is totally justifiable. So like my questions are, where are you with like Chase and Higgins moving forward if it matters? And then would you consider Joe Burrow?
Yes, would consider Burrow. Problem is I have a lot of guys that consider that QB3 range. So if we get, this is going to sound weird. If we get neighbors, I'll be higher on Burrow because I think that increases the shootout appeal of this game.
Yeah.
You're shaking your head.
Sounds smart to me.
Okay, cool. With the receivers, I think we'll see it kind of normalize to where it's been in the past, which means Jamar Chase in the 28% range, T in the 25% range. And frankly, with their talent in this offense, that's enough for them to be worth their salaries. I still prefer Lamb at 93. And when he's facing a team that probably not, Lamb's facing a team that will give more pushback. I think that's kind of what I'm trying to say there. So I still prefer Lamb, but I'm okay with Chase. And T Higgins 76, like that seems too low, right?
Yeah, I think so. That's kind of where I am. Like, I'm not worried that Higgins is going to move down to a 20% target share, like what we saw last year.
Yeah, he was hurt all year.
He was hurt. Like, yeah. He probably. I mean, we like Terry a lot. I think T is a little like a lot safer. I know the salaries aren't the same, but like T's definitely in that conversation. It makes me high enough on Burrow where
Sure.
I'd consider him.
Where do you
But
consider
might not
Burrow
even
versus Hurts?
Hurts over Burrow. I think the real question is more Dak versus Burrow, even though I'm totally aware that the game environment is better and safer for Dak. Joe Burrow's got like 400-yard, 4-touchdown upside. Dak has that, but I think the percentile discrepancy there is relatively like large. So it's enough for me to consider Burrow, but Burrow might not even be the most fun quarterback in this game.
Daniel Jones, $6,800 there. I think the downside for me is that there are 10-mile-per-hour winds here, and there will be 0-mile-per-hour winds at Jerry World. If I look at my total model, I've got the Cowboys game almost 4.5 points higher than where I've got this one. So I think that's why I settle on Dak, because like you said, like I know that he hasn't shown 400-yard potential yet, whereas Burrow has, but they struggled around the football, facing a team that's good against the rush. They are indoors. I think that he has the building blocks for a blow-up kind of game.
Joe Burrow's averaged 21.6 FanDuel points per game in his career in games with double-digit wins.
Pretty good. And he's played in plenty, I think.
Like that's like, I think at a certain point, and it's 10, it's not 20.
Yeah.
10's sort of where as I've learned from you, 10's where, or at least as I've learned my own way from you, 10's where I start to like think about it.
Yeah.
10's doable. And I don't want to downplay Burrow with two guys who can get 30. These two guys could have 30% target shares themselves.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't want to overlook that. Any thoughts for you on like the Giants then?
I don't know, man. Like, I don't want to get too high on this offense to have the rug pulled out from under me. Like, they're volatile in a bad way. So I will probably use Daniel Jones. I will probably use other guys in this offense, but I want to make sure I'm not getting overly aggressive with a team that can flop even in good matchups. That makes sense. The exception being Tyrone Tracy. If we get no Devin Singletary, I would adore that. Would happily be there. Let's move on, talk about my trend now, and that is going to be on the Atlanta Falcons, because the Falcons, similar to the Bengals, got off to a slow start, but they looked a lot better recently, and they're up to 9th in NumberFire's schedule-adjusted passing offense rankings. Now, facing the Panthers, 31st ranked pass defense, so we should dig into the Falcons, kind of see how to handle them here. I do think we got a good idea about where the ball is going. Drake London leads the team with a 26% target share, 47% inside the red zone. That is very, very nice for a wide receiver. It's a pretty good role, and he can produce in it. So for $74, I think he makes a lot of sense. Darnell Mooney could be a good mid-range play. 24% overall target share, but a 55% deep target share, which is 3.4 deep targets per game. Just their second outdoor game this year, and there is some wind here, but that's also pretty enticing for Mooney. I am not in on Kyle Pitts. Target share is still 14%. I got to see more before I get drawn into that. No thanks. But with London and Mooney, you got two good pieces. As for the running back, we'll toss him in this discussion too. Bijan Robinson not listed on the injury report Wednesday, which is noteworthy because he was on the injury report with a shoulder injury in week 4, hamstring injury in week 5. Also a short week heading to week 5. Salary is still high at 85. I think he's objectively over-salaried, but his role before the injuries was great, and I don't think anybody will want to use him this week. So I am in on Mooney, pretty in on London, and I would like to give Bijan a spin in tournaments. Where are you on the Falcons as they take on the Panthers?
Well, we're talking pushback, right? Like, where's the pushback here?
I mean, they had 24 points against the Bengals, so like, they can have good games. They were okay against the Raiders, but I'm also not considering the quarterback, whereas with the Bengals, I am considering the quarterback. So like, I want more pushback for a quarterback than for a high usage skill player.
Okay. Yeah. I struggle with this team because Drake London should be the clear number 1. And sometimes I feel like Darnell Mooney's their number 1. And I think he's really good.
Mooney.
I think Ray McLeod's really good. or at least good.
18%
Mooney,
target shares. He's getting work. Yeah.
I'm with you with Pitts. Mooney, I have no real issue with. The salary's totally justifiable. The problem is they threw so much that the number, like the raw numbers, are up, and they're
but it's still a 24% target share.
The raw numbers are up. He had 105 yards and 2 touchdowns. Therefore, the salary, I think, went up more than I would have liked.
Okay.
For this, I understand the shares, love the player. I think the salary just climbed too much as a result of a 24% target share on 9,000 passes and 500 some yards. Like, that's what I was getting at. So 6,500 is a bit much for me to love him whenever Terry is close by.
I prefer Terry.
So I think what I'll really learn here when we do the scroll is, okay, Mooney, where does he kind of land in the 6,000 range? As for London, it's kind of a similar thing where it's T. Higgins or Drake London. I feel way better about T. Higgins personally, because Drake London has, the raw targets are there. The market shares, I totally I get it. I'm just not as sold, I guess, on this offense as I might, because Joe Burrow honestly has been like the best quarterback in football, but his team's 1-4.
Sure. And London's yardage upside has not been as good as T's. I know he had 154 last week, but not as much downfield work as T gets, and I care about that quite a bit. So
yeah,
I agree with you that I prefer T, but London is in the consideration set at receiver at $7,400.
So what's your ideal scenario to play the Falcons? Do you think it's Carolina's good enough, and therefore you
I think that Carolina's defense is so bad. No, I'm not considering a single Panther.
Okay.
I think that Carolina's defense is so bad that we get a similar spot to last week where DJ Moore and DeAndre Swift both blew up against them, despite the Panthers literally going to their backup quarterback in the fourth quarter because they were down so big. I think their defense is bad enough where that's within the range of outcomes. Would you consider Bijan 85 or not? So
begrudgingly, yes.
Okay.
But the fact that I'm not clamoring to play him against this defense is kind of telling.
I think it's telling of the field, what the field will do too, though, which is part of why I want to go there. Is I think people are out because of all the Tyler Algier stuff, and I think that's potentially a bit of an overreaction, personally.
Could be.
Yeah. All right. Weather actually is somewhat impactful on this slate. So let's take a look at the weather report for this week. We have 14-mile-per-hour winds for the Packers and Cardinals in Green Bay. Total is down 2 points. I've still got that total at 46.7 personally, so it's not low despite the wind. And I care a lot about wind in my model, so that's okay. Got 10-mile-per-hour winds for the Eagles and Browns. Total is down a point there. I think it's because of the Browns offense more than anything, though, which is justifiable. 10-mile-per-hour winds for Colts and Titans in Nashville, and then 10-mile-per-hour winds for the Giants and Bengals in East Rutherford for Sunday Night Football. Let's dive in now to our position by position breakdown and take a look at the top plays we like at each position on FanDuel. Let's start things off at quarterback, Brandon. When you go there, who are the guys you are most gravitating towards for this week?
I mean, obviously Lamar for so many reasons, but mostly mostly because he's got 40-point potential in this game, but also I do like some of the high salaried running backs, but we should have some value or a semblance of value at running back. There are enough mid-range receivers. Lamar needs to be a priority for me.
I agree. And I think he's a quarterback one, with Jaden Daniels being quarterback two. Have you settled on Daniels being your quarterback two?
Yeah, I think I like this game enough. And frankly, his rushing potential makes it so that even though there's only Terry McLaurin that I kind of want to stack him with,
Yeah.
I can play him by himself if I want. Similar with Jalen Hurts in case he rushes for 2 touchdowns.
So the consideration set for the quarterback 3 is Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, and then Daniel Jones. Did I miss anybody in that consideration set there?
I think those are the names.
Okay. If you had to give me I don't want you to rank all 4 because that's a lot. Who are you currently leaning towards as being your QB3?
Jalen Hurts.
Okay. Is it pretty definitive?
No.
Okay.
It's the fact that the salary is still relatively high. The game log doesn't look great, but he's pretty much played his whole season without
correct
AJ Brown, who's legitimately one of the best receivers in football. Devontae Smith has been hurt as well. Dallas Goedert, I'm not playing him at 7,000, but he's also a good tight end. So I'm kind of maybe doing a little bit of like the galaxy brain where it's Hurts because people might play Dak, but I don't know. I'm also really bad at judging quarterback roster rates, and I don't really care about roster rates.
His salary's come down quite a bit. He's down. You could argue he's down 1,000 from where his like peak has been in terms of salary.
Yeah, he could.
I think that does help too.
Who would you be less surprised getting to 30, Hurts or Dak?
Hurts. And the fact that I answered that so fast should tell you that I should probably be Hurts QB3.
And I think, I don't want to speak for you, but I think we're relatively pro Dak Prescott.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah.
Doesn't run as much. That makes it harder for him to get to 30.
Now getting to 30. One of these 2 quarterbacks has 30, one doesn't. Joe Burrow or Dak Prescott. Who are you least surprised about? Honestly,
that should probably be Burrow too, frankly, right?
Right.
Like I worry about the game environment, but yeah, probably should be Burrow too.
I mean, he's one of the guys who has, again, I said it, like 400-yard, 3 to 4 touchdown upside. Dak has that, but I would be way more surprised that he throws for those numbers.
I think you're selling me there. So Dak, I'll put him at QB5 right now. I'll put him above Jones. Maybe I still use Jones because I want, like, if we don't get value plays at running back, maybe I have to use Jones to get some CeeDee Lamb exposure and stuff like that. But yeah.
Yeah. And then we can kind of just, Jones, honestly, his adjusted efficiency has been good. He's run the ball. He could get, I really only get there with Jones if Neighbors is back because Neighbors is such an obvious uplift here. But you're betting against 4 or 5 guys now that we've kind of dug into it, having big games. But Jones's salary is quite nice, and he would let you build a different lineup than I think most.
That's the main appeal of him. So still considering him, but currently QB6 for me. He'll get bumped up if we get not enough value running back. Speaking of running back, let's start with the studs here. That being Saquon Barkley, 92. Derrick Henry, 91. I'm going to omit Kamara because of the car injury.
Yeah.
Bijan Robinson, 85. I'll put him in there because like 85 is high on a slate we want to get to Lamar. So considering salary, role, game environment, etc., how are you ranking those 3 and how eager are you to get to one of them within a lineup?
How am I ranking them?
Yeah.
Saquon, Henry, Robinson. As I understand where you're going with Robinson, but there's enough concern. The concern for Henry is that he just kind of isn't efficient, or they trail, which I guess is possible. I feel best about Saquon.
I do too.
And then
I feel second best about Bijan though.
I could kind of flip a coin. I understand it with Bijan. I think you're making good points. But what was the other question? Like how likely am I to?
How likely are you to prioritize getting one of them in a lineup?
Let's look at Let's look at the range below this and come back to me.
So the range below this is James Conner, 8,000. Got the Lions guys. Brian Robinson, I don't feel the need to go there this week because he's banged up. Josh Jacobs, 76. Chuba, 74. Najee doesn't exist. Tony Pollard, 7,000. Within the 7,000, actually, let's put Pollard in a different discussion. Between Chuba at 74, Connor at 8,000, anybody you view as a priority in that range?
It's like, what are the odds of any of these guys other than I could see Gibbs getting to like 30?
Sure, maybe,
but
even
I don't really
that
see it.
It's a tough.
That's like okay, yeah. I don't know, man. I think
I'm highest on
prioritizing,
Jacobs, but I'm more receptive to skipping this range than I have been in the past.
and therefore we've got three backs with potential for like massive upside. I would say Kamara has it if he gets like 12 targets out of the backfield, like creatively, but I'm not there.
Yeah.
So maybe I can't. Don't make me prioritize Bijan. But
Sorry,
it kind of
bro.
makes sense, doesn't it? Looking at this,
Yeah, I think so.
None of these guys are gonna. None of these
I
guys
like
are
Jacobs
gonna burn us.
most, but I don't adore him.
I agree. None of these guys are gonna burn us. Saquon,
Yeah.
Henry, and Bijan can burn us.
Okay, so knowing what the 7,000 range is, let's go back down to the 7 to like Tony Pollard 7,000, J.K. Dobbins 67, and then I guess Rico Dowdle at 61, but he's more of a value play.
Yeah.
I'm receptive to Pollard, receptive to Dobbins. I don't adore either. I think again this kind of pushes me up on getting one of Saquon, Bijan, Henry in there.
Yeah. Now the question becomes: are we just trying to take the value at running back and saying I'm playing only value at running back? Like, you're asking a lot out of everything else with your lineups.
Yeah.
If you're doing that,
I don't mind doing that if I can project good volume for those guys. I just don't know if I'll be able to do that yet. I will say, do you want to mention Pollard quick? We talked about Dobbins earlier. With Pollard, the role has been good so far. The Colts defense stinks. They lost a lot of dudes to injured reserve. We saw Tank Bigsby torch them last week. And Pollard's role, again, has been solid. Pollard this year averaging 23.3 adjusted opportunities per game, which is, again, carries plus 2x targets. That actually, among each guy's most relevant sample, there's no Joe Mixon, we're ranked third behind Saquon and Kamara. Pretty good role. I'm not sure what his like yardage upside is, given that the offense stinks, but like the role is good. It's a better game environment than what Dobbins has. So I don't want to gloss over Pollard. He will be in my player pool this week.
yeah, 83 scrimmage yards a game, good red zone share. Tennessee's got a 23-point implied team total coming off of a bye.
Yeah.
Pollard might be a better play than Jacobs, honestly, or close enough.
What about Pollard versus Dobbins? I prefer Pollard personally. I like the game more, but Pollard, I think it's a similar role in a better game.
Sure.
Okay. So let's talk about the value plays, and this is going to be where the hypotheticals will come in.
Yeah.
Rico Dowdle, no hypotheticals. He is what he is at 61. Trey Sermon, if he gets in a full practice and there's no Jonathan Taylor. Tyrone Tracy, if we assume there's no Devin Singletary, we both agree that we're not going to be there if Singletary plays. Rachaad White will play. He practiced on Wednesday, but Bucky Irving, I do want to mention, if we get him without Rachaad White, I would definitely be there.
Yeah.
And then the other guys are Chase Brown, $40, and Dameon Pierce at $49. Let's say everything breaks our way. You can pick your poison, hypothetically, because like we're not considering Chase Brown and Zach Moss plays. We're not considering Tyrone Tracy if Devin Singletary plays. So best case scenario, how are you ranking these guys?
Best case, Chase Brown with no Moss, number one by far.
I agree.
Number two would be Bucky without Rachaad.
Okay.
I feel like that's pretty well. Yeah, I feel like that I'd feel pretty good with that.
I think Tracy needs to be 3 in this discussion if there's no Singletary.
Probably. That's where I was going to go next.
Yeah.
Over Pierce.
I agree.
Frankly, Dowdle, I like him. I like the talent. I understand the role, but he's still a 50% snap rate guy. Maybe that goes up. Maybe the opportunity per snap rate is just an outlier moving forward. But I think he's not top 3 in best case scenario.
If we don't get the value plays, will he be in your player pool?
Yes.
Okay.
He would be the...
If we don't get the value plays, Rico or Dobbins?
Rico, slightly.
I think so too. I agree with your ranking of the guys.
What I was actually going to do when you were throwing all these at me and I had to stop was like build Lamar, plug in Saquon or Bijan, do like a Pollard, and then assume it's like Rico, and we don't get like the hyper value, like because I think Rico's, again, that contingency that I kind of been talking about is like, all right, we end up not getting. I just saw your Central Time stamps and
sorry, it does that on Sportsbook too, and I wonder if people get tilted when they watch the streams. I think about that.
But yeah, Rico is like I think maybe you said he was like a break glass sort of play.
Yep.
That's where I'd like to leave him.
Yeah.
Which sounds kind of dismissive. It also probably sounds like I don't like him as much.
Yeah.
Like I'm only playing him due to salary, but there's also not a lot of running backs. If we don't get the value backs, there ain't a lot of running backs.
I agree. If you do Lamar plus Saquon, Pollard and Rico in there, which is kind of like worst case scenario for value backs, and you put Schultz in at tight end, Buccaneers defense in, $6,400 for 3 receivers, you could probably get Zay in there too.
Yeah,
you could put Zay in there, I think. So, or Terry, one or the other, but you can make Lamar and Saquon work even with Pollard and Dowdle, which is kind of our worst case scenario at value back. So
yeah, that's what
makes me higher on Lamar.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to see. I feel good enough with Rico. And again, if there aren't those other backs, I'd say he has the best role then of everyone.
Okay, sure. I will still consider Pierce, but I want to keep him in the 20, 25, 30% range, somewhere in there. If he's full by Friday. If he's not full, then no thanks. Okay, we talked through the receivers in full. You were previously Chase over Lamb. Do you stick by that?
No.
So you're going to go with Lamb over Chase now?
I'm going to go Lamb, yeah.
Because of the indoors?
Indoors, more likely to be, and honestly, there's got to be some squeaky wheel stuff going on. True. Jamar Chase has scored from like 40 yards out so many times. He's good enough to do it again. He's good enough to do it again.
Sure.
But I think the smarter play here is Lamb.
I agree.
He's got, you got to get him double-digit targets. What are they doing?
Well, they give him rush attempts too. It's like they get the ball in his hands. So
I care about that, but get him double-digit targets. What are we doing here?
Yeah, I agree. 8,000 range at receiver is weirdly blank because there's no Nico. I'm not getting to Mike Evans 82. I'm not super high on AJ Brown. I like that he's back because it helps Hurts, but like I prefer, like I want a bring back option for a high salaried receiver, and AJ Brown 81 is pretty high salaried.
I mean, can you just copy and paste this week 1 stats? Come on, what are we doing?
It's fine. 23.4 is fine at $8,100. So that game is a shootout played on ice.
Is that a joke? You'd be disappointed with 23.4 at 81?
No, not disappointed, but it's not like, I'm not like, oh my gosh, every lineup kind of thing.
If I got 23.4 FanDuel points from a receiver, like, what are you hoping for from CeeDee Lamb then? If he gets you like 27, you're disappointed?
I want 40, baby. I think 40 is in the range of outcomes.
I don't know if this is a bit. I think we need to move past it.
Okay. Neighbors, where are you if he plays?
I like him. Neighbors and T mini stacks would be fun, but Chase Brown Neighbors stacks would be very nice.
Where do you rank Neighbors versus T if Neighbors is good to go?
It should be Neighbors because he's got 50% target share upside, and despite what, again, could be a bit, but I don't think this one was. Malik Neighbors is really, really good at football. So
I think he's good at football. I just think his quarterback stinks.
Oh my gosh.
But it is what it is. Okay. Rest of the 7,000 range. Jaden Reed 77. I'm ignoring Stephon Diggs. Jaden Reed 77. T Higgins 76. Chris Godwin 75. Drake London 74. There are a lot of guys in 7,000 range I would be okay with.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a guy I would label as a love in this range.
Not T.
borderline love. He's my favorite of this range,
Sure.
but I don't know if I can go with love.
Godwin or London?
London, because I like the game more.
Are we sure that New Orleans with Spencer Rattler? What'd your model say about Rattler, by the way?
It hated him.
Okay.
Like despised. It liked Jake Haener more, I think. I can't confirm that, but like they should start Spencer Rattler because he has higher upside, because Jake Haener is kind of like a chaos agent. He's fun. He's a chaos agent. So I did not like Rattler though.
Godwin, London, Smith, Flowers.
Zay won. Like there are outcomes where he flops because they just get a lead and they can run Henry 16,000 times, but like I still like Zay most.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the Olave's 2 touchdown game, but
of course going to happen with the backup quarterback. Let me just check here. Try to pull up my. All right, I want to get you an answer on Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler was pre-draft model 45th percentile. Oh, sorry, 29th percentile. I can't read. 29th percentile. Jake Haener was 23rd percentile, 22nd percentile, 6. So actually didn't like either guy. That's fun. So no, it is what it is there. Okay, let's scroll down at receiver. Love Terry 68. I think he's the closest thing to a love at receiver we've gotten this entire slate for me. Terry McLaurin 68.
Yeah.
And then I really pick back up at receiver once we get down to Jameson Williams at 63. And I do like Jalen Tolbert quite a bit.
I like him too, but like if we're talking who pops here, who do you want to put in a lineup? Tolbert's game stacks for me. Jameson's game stacks for me. If I'm playing Jameson, I'm assuming that it's a good game. Therefore, he's earning deep targets. Not the game's terrible, but he caught 1 of 3 targets, and it's just like a really ugly game. That's not what I want him for.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he's got. This game was bad, but at least Jameson got 13 targets. Like, I wish that were the case, but that's really not really what happened. So
yeah.
I wish I could like Amari, but I
can't do it.
I can't do it anymore. It kind of burned me last week.
If you told me we got second half Jameis, I would consider Amari, but that's not
true.
Gonna happen. But it's not going to happen. So
George Pickens is on the he's on a snap count situation to get more productivity, which I don't know about that.
And then you watch the routes, like, yeah, fair enough. I get it.
I don't know. I can't get there in that game.
So is Terry the only love in the 6,000 range at receiver?
Yeah, I can't even put Tank there due to the fact that they're moving outdoors. And
yeah, I agree.
I'm not convinced that he's going to get a lot more work. Maybe they're trying to keep him. Maybe they're trying to keep him in check to keep him healthy after what happened to him last year. I don't know, but
yeah, he also he did sustain a gunshot wound during the offseason. Like that's a thing too, but I don't know what role that's playing in all this, but it's at least in my mind. I think seeing the 6,000 range be underwhelming does help me with Mooney. $6,500. The downfield work is great. I had to temper expectations because similar to Dell's moving outdoors, but like from a target projection perspective, I'd project Mooney for more targets and more downfield work than Tank this week. So I think Mooney is the closest thing to a standalone play in this range outside of Terry. And then JMO, and that's kind of it as far as standalone options. I think I'm leaning towards you with Tolbert, where it probably should just be game stacks.
I'm not sure there's anyone else who like, who do you like, you know, the types of plays I'm talking about where you're like last week, unfortunately for us, it was George Pickens where everything lined up for him to have a good game. And then he didn't play much. Like he played like a 50-some% snap rate. Who here are you clamoring for?
Terry.
And if you can't, but below that,
Mooney to an extent, not clamoring for, but like, okay, yeah, I can see that.
Sure, I'm with you there. And we keep going down. like I can't really get to Wicks,
Not if Watson's
not as
back,
like again, I'm thinking priority plays.
Yeah.
I like Slayton, understand the potential. Not going to go out of my way to play Darius Slayton. Not going to like plug in Slayton and be like, all right, now I'm building from here.
Yeah.
Those don't really exist.
So let's look at the 6,000 and below range at receiver. Is there anyone?
Whoa. Slow down, Tiger. There we go. Nope.
I was going to.
Is there anyone what?
Anyone you want to use here?
I always want to use Alec Pierce, but
yeah,
if we're talking,
yeah,
again, I'm not starting. Sometimes there are receivers, like Chris Godwin week 1 was like his salary was like 56 or something. It's like, yeah, I want to use him,
yeah,
and go from there. I don't have that at receiver this week.
If the Chargers ever play in a game with a total above 40, I will use Ladd McConkey. But I don't know if that'll ever happen. So I'll get there once it happens, but it's not there yet. Anything else at receiver down here where you're like, yeah, I can see the path. I can see the vision.
The path?
Yeah.
Xavier Hutchinson.
Okay.
The path.
Okay. $4,900.
Could basically take over the Nico Collins role. Mostly underwhelming profile for the most part, but we've learned, Jim. We've seen game logs like this. We've projected, he's going to take over this role, and he gives us this. We're talking path, sure. That's all I got. Actually, no, path, also Alec Pierce. If Alec Pierce,
sure.
Yes, he's been running routes, but if they don't have anyone else on the field who can earn targets, maybe he earns more targets.
Sure. And the hope would also be like they realize he's good and they decide to scheme him more stuff. Like that's a path too. But
I think I saw a headline where they're like, how do we
consider putting Alec Pierce at quarterback? Maybe a running back if both Trey Sermon and Jonathan Taylor are out, Give it a shot, guys. Let's see what happens.
He's actually the best path.
Yeah.
But wide receiver is kind of brutal.
Yeah, honestly. It's not great. Okay. Loves at receiver after we talk through things. Who you going with?
CeeDee Lamb.
Uh-huh.
I'm going T. Higgins.
Okay. I like that. Fine with that.
Terry McLaurin for sure.
Uh-huh.
Those would probably be my 3. And I'd apologize saying my loves are only. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd apologize.
I lean towards the exact same 3, and then Jameson Williams, Jalen Tolbert are my I guess I got to go down here. And Darnell Mooney are I guess I got to say some salary kind of plays.
Yeah, I have those as the sort of, secondary plays.
Yep.
I think Devontae Smith is at least borderline, but
the salary's low enough where that's fair. 73. Yeah. So I think I get that. Knock into Dallas Goedert 7,000. We go to tight end. Brock Bowers 67. I think it's downgraded because of Aiden Hutchinson. I freaking love his role, and he's such a good football player. But man. How are you viewing Brock Bowers and Trey McBride in the upper 6,000 range?
I'm just kind of trying to avoid anyone playing against the Steelers when I can, especially when it's the Raiders.
Sure.
I like Trey McBride quite a bit. It might be hard though to have 6,500 for a tight end.
I think that's the biggest downside.
I would rather roll the dice on players with moderate roles at tight end than guessing at roles or hoping that Amari Cooper has catchable targets for once, or hoping that they reverse course on George Pickens and he,
right.
Again, it's not like
not going to happen.
It's not that would he have 7 targets?
Yeah, it's still fine, but it's the vibes. Vibes matter, and the vibes are real bad.
So for that reason, I'm going to be lower on McBride than I would like to be. He would be the closest to if I was being sort of, these are my favorite plays. McBride would be a love. Right. I'm sitting here saying, I want to play Lamar. I don't know, very receptive to Saquon or at least Bijan now, unfortunately. and like CeeDee Lamb, I can't sit here and say I'm gonna play a ton of Trey McBride.
I'm already dreading they're playing afternoon. I'm dreading the 5:00 p.m. Central Time Slack of why did I use Bijan Robinson? It's gonna happen. You can schedule it in Slack. You can actually schedule messages. If you want to schedule that now, go ahead. I'll save you the time. You got a lot of stuff on your plate Sundays. Just schedule it now and think about it later. Okay. I agree with you, McBride, where probably need to save a bit if I can. So we look lower at tight end. Jake Ferguson, 61. Tucker Kraft, 6,000. And scrolling. Dalton Schultz, 53, is kind of gaining appeal for me from the perspective of I should save salary at tight end and get a guy who's probably going to get a target bump with a teammate out. Who are you highlighting here in this range of tight end?
Highlighting is probably not the right word. But
I'm highlighting because I can't say love.
Well, I guess that's fair. Schultz, I will point out that Cade Otton has a pretty good role. He runs a lot of routes. I know we don't love
believe
this
he wears
game.
gloves, and that's really off-putting.
Okay.
Yeah. He doesn't always wear gloves, and I think that's abysmal.
Okay. Who?
Dalton Schultz wears gloves.
He also, yeah. I like him fine. I like Schultz, but I don't love this game. I don't love really the matchup. I still don't like playing anyone against the Patriots because they just try to ugly everything up. Whether they can or not is a different discussion, but tight end's the hardest position by far. What's a rough estimate of your exposure level? And it's probably not even worth discussing Taysom Hill because he didn't practice.
Yeah. If you were to get a full practice in, I'd be cool with it. But I think that
what are your exposure levels do you think are going to look like?
Well, it depends on the value running backs. If we get more value running backs, I don't need to go Schultz as much. I can get up to Trey McBride. If we don't get value running backs, I'll have more Dalton Schultz because I need to.
So
I'd also have more Eric All if there's no Mike Gesicki, I'm gonna have a lot of Eric All, I think.
Yeah. Sure.
I think tight end's just kind of underwhelming again. So I might as well save salary. And that's via Schultz and via All.
It is underwhelming pretty much always. There's not a lot of guys who can really burn us. Although Tucker Kraft looks like Rob Gronkowski. So
yeah. Okay. Who are your loves? Who are the players you're okay using a tight end? I'm going to rephrase it.
McBride, Jake Ferguson. I'm actually high on. I didn't really make that clear, but it's a salary thing, so it's a little bit trickier.
Yeah.
And then probably Dalton Schultz and Eric All.
Okay.
My loves probably would have been McBride and Schultz if I did too.
I think about that too. Okay. Defense. Scrolling to the bottom. What are you seeing here?
I'm looking for any way to save salary because I need it. And again, maybe we have so many running back values that it doesn't matter, but
I think that the Falcons at 38 and the Bucks at 37 are both like I'll take it. Like typically what I do is I put in a defense so I know what I've got from a salary perspective, and then if I've got salary on the table, I can spend up. I think that my two default ones are Falcons Bucks.
The Bucks are the first place from the bottom that I've been plugging in. I'm good with the Falcons as well. Never love a defense on the road as much, and both of these are on the road, but kind of.
And the Falcons benefit. I do want to target defense playing in wind, and the Falcons get that. So that's good.
I think those are the two true standouts for me.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure. Like,
I
know what you're.
Yeah,
I know what you're saying. When you have a couple extra bucks, like get up to the low fours.
Yeah,
not a lot there that I want to get to. So
yeah,
I can
see the Colts. The Colts defense stinks, but so does Will Levis.
I was going to say that. I thought you'd yell at me and then think about it and be like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. We just get the first step there. And I don't hate the Raiders. It's just a low total game. Fields can make mistakes. So
sure. I think Falcons Bucks, I might have like 50% of each and just call it a day.
I could very well do the exact same. Okay, now that we talked through the entire slate, Brandon, any final thoughts for you for week 6?
I thought I was going to feel better, but I actually feel a little bit worse because now I realize that the 3 running backs at the top.
Yeah.
This is not like a play all the value running backs. Like just play 3 value running backs, whichever ones we get. I think that might be a mistake because we have 3 guys with legitimate upside. If I believe Jim and Bijan Robinson, who for now
because of me, I don't want that smoke. I do not. For now, don't put that evil on me.
For now, until proven otherwise, he's the other B Robinson behind Brian Robinson Jr.
Brian Robinson.
So let's see if he can earn that back. But I actually feel kind of worse because it's like I probably should go into this trying to prioritize to some degree Saquon, Derrick Henry, and what's that total? Like 9,000.
I have it at 52.7.
It's 51.5 on FanDuel Sportsbook as well. I have Derrick Henry, so got to figure things out. But I am lower on Daniel Jones. I think there are enough quarterbacks where I don't want to punt there. So but we didn't really uncover any value at receiver. Tight ends. Maybe the best thing is tight ends so bad for the most part that you just like rest up Mike Gesicki, get well.
Yep. I agree with that.
Do you feel better? Do you feel better after talking about this?
Oh no, definitely not. I think that what I would go back to is what we said in the beginning, where once we know how things broke at running back, go through and hand rank the players after considering salary. Check out, consider Dameon Pierce if you must, but then, guys like Pierce, Dowdle, and Dobbins get bumped up if there's no great value plays, but you want to be careful with those because those are kind of the guys that fall into we're using them because our salaries are low tier, and that's always kind of shaky for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's tough. Yeah.
That is all that we have here for today. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast feed, FanDuel Research Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Also check out the FanDuel Football Betting YouTube page. Leave us a thumbs up if you're watching over there. We appreciate all of you for tuning in for today. Later on today, 4 p.m. Eastern, Dubs Anderson of FanDuel TV will join me on the same YouTube page, break down best bets across NFL Week 6. And tomorrow, Andy Nader will join me breaking down NFL player props, 10 a.m. Eastern for NFL Week 6. Brandon, people have questions for you on X. Where can they find you there?
At Gdula 13, GDULA 13.
And I'm on X at JimSannes. You can find FanDuel Research on X at FanDuel Research. Want to give a big thank you to our YouTube producer, Justin Lane, for his work on the video side of things. Thank you, Justin, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck to you with your DFS lineups in week number 6. We'll talk to you once again next week to break down week number 7. This has been The Heat Check, a FanDuel Research podcast.